Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of the series Military to Corporate Bridging the Gap. Sorry for the delay. There was a technical hitch, and that's why. So let's start. So I'm very thrilled to have each one of you join us today as we get into this, very, very important topic and significant importance it is in today's professional landscape. Well, if you recall, this was about in July 25th, just before the Kargil Vijay Divas, M2C launched this initiative where we are, every month we have sessions wherein we call upon military leaders from different domains who have successfully transitioned from being leaders in the military to being leaders in the corporate world. And with that, we have finished 4 episodes, and this is the fifth one. And today we have called upon leaders from the HR domain. HR is very, very close to my heart because I come from that domain. And so here we are today. So let me introduce the panelists today for the session. We have the first panelist is Major Sonal Sharda. Major Sonal has about 25 years of work experience, served the Indian Army for 10 years in Army Supply Corps. Sonal is an accomplished HR professional. She has a deep understanding of both military and civilian environment. She's passionate about helping others navigate their transition. Sonal is dedicated to fostering inclusive workplace and believes in unique strength the veteran brings to the table. Currently, she's working at Amdocs and is responsible for creating and driving the global strategy of the leadership domain. She leads the people chapter for the APAC sales division across 12 countries. She also leads D&I initiatives through data-driven insights, driving intervention to improve employee engagement and enhance diverse leadership representation. Thanks, Sonal, for joining in today, and a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Rimple. Happy to be here.
Great. Next panelist we have is Captain Hari Krishna. Captain Hari has about 25 years of work experience. He served in the Indian Army for 5 years. Hari is a business-centric talent transformation leader with deep experience in managing talent and OD initiatives across global locations. His career journey has been a mosaic of change spanning from the difficult terrain of Indian Army to strategic boardrooms of Fortune 500 multinational companies. Post his Army tenure, Krishna has worked with some of the best in global organizations like Deloitte, Infosys Technologies, Bank of America, and Allstate. Captain Hari is also a well-decorated corporate soldier with over 6 industry awards for innovation and business outcomes of cutting-edge tech talent strategies he implemented. He also mentors startups and is currently on the advisory board of 2 companies. Thanks, Hari, for joining in today, and a warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Rimple. Happy to be here.
Great. And last but not least, we have someone from the Air Force. We have Wing Commander Megha Punya. Megha has about 19 years of work experience, served the Indian Air Force for 14 years. She was in the fighter control branch of the Air Force. She's highly pragmatic, versatile professional with experience in wide variety of disciplines like HR business partnering, stakeholder management, strategic HR, HR transformation, and change management. She is skilled at unlocking the potential of human resource through effective digital HR transformation initiative. She has a team-based management style and a passion for transforming visions into reality through effective mentoring, training, and career planning. Currently, she is working with UBS as a director. Thanks, Megha, for joining in today, and a warm welcome to you as well.
Hey, Ripple, thanks. Happy to be here.
Great. So how this panel discussion is going to be is that we have questions for the panel. And I'm sure when they are answering these questions, you will get a lot of insight about the HR domain. And of course, the tips to how to prepare for this domain. So let me start with Sonal. Sonal, first question to you. When I was going through your profile, I saw that you are People Leader International APAC region. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of veterans out there don't understand what this actually means. So tell us more about your role and also throw some light about what are some of those competencies which are required to be HR business partner.
So firstly, Rimple, happy to be here. And to everyone, in uniform and out of uniform and those thinking about giving up the uniform for the corporate garb, I want to tell you that Rimple, me and Hari are co-mates. So Rimple, currently what I'm doing is I'm heading the HR portfolio, the people portfolio for our international unit. And in that APAC is a region, Asia Pacific. So currently I head the sales division, I head their people charter, and this spans about 12, soon 13 countries. And what else? So these are people that are in any organization. So we are an organization which is product-led services.
Mm-hmm.
And at the tip of the sphere is this division, the one that eventually goes out, sells, creates a business pipeline for the rest of the organization to follow. So that's my role. And my journey in HR, besides this current role, has been more or less around organizational development, leadership development, talent management, and now into business partnering with the org. I would say the competencies that are needed for this role would be something that our veterans are well versed in. Okay, it's just a matter of finding the right language. I will read out about 5, just to keep the number manageable. And I would put the first to be communication skills, right? The idea of being able to communicate, whether it's at a leadership level, whether it's with the customer, whether it's to the entire organization as a whole, or to even to pitch to the board what the vision is, how do you plan to take it forward, to reach out to the last person at the end of the line, which I think our veterans are very, very, very well versed at. So first is communication skills. The second is leadership and people management. Again, which I think gets ingrained into us right from our selection to the day we, I think, hang our boots finally in life.
True.
I think leadership and people management comes to us by virtue of both learning as well as practicing on a day-to-day basis. It's part of our DNA.
True.
The third is problem-solving skills. And to anyone who's worn uniform knows that you basically get thrown into the pool and said, okay, now you figure it out.
Yeah.
So problem-solving skill almost becomes a survival skill for us. Okay. And unfortunately, I have to tell the veteran folks that that doesn't change when you come out. You still get thrown at the other end, at the deep end of the pool, and you need to figure your way out. Having the ability to read a lot of information, to connect the dots in the environment, and then to be able to suggest something that makes sense for you and for the organization will continue to be one of the strongest competencies. Fourth is business acumen. This is something that needs work.
Yes.
This is something that they need to familiarize themselves, whichever organization or domain that they choose to, if they've already selected something, if they have something that they're aspiring to work towards, my suggestion is to start working on understanding the business. And by understanding the business really right from the grassroots to at the mega conceptual strategic level, what is the need? How do they fulfill it? How even reading financial statements is going to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
So besides the marketing jargon, everything that you read on the website, how do you really truly understand the business and the health of the organization? This would be what would be the fourth competency. And the last is linked a little bit to the problem solving skill, but it has more of a day-to-day use, is analytical skills. As we step out, see in the Army, Navy, or Air Force, most of the info is not, you have information that's relevant to you, available to you, and then you kind of analyze and do what's needed. But here you will need analytical skills. To give an example, you will need data, an interpretation of data, and analysis of data to inform your decisions about everything to do with people. People, processes, policies, everything that you name, it will need deep analytical skills. And this is also something that can be worked upon. And this should be started, right from when they start thinking about, listen, maybe I want to start, the next part of my career, next part of my adventure outside. So learning about business, and learning about analytical skills, really understanding what sort of data is available and how does it inform what decisions. So I would say these are the competencies that are required in this role as a generalist. Unless
Great,
you go to
great.
something specific, then it becomes more niche. Then
Yeah.
you can do certifications, or you can do um, courses, long degrees, etc., to get deeper into it. But as a generalist, again, so we'll come to the advice later. But
This is
these are the
great.
competencies that are needed for this particular role.
Absolutely, because as you know, I was also the HR, business partner for longer duration in
Yeah.
my career in the HR. So I think one of the points which you really touched, which is so very important, is learning about the business.
Yeah.
Usually, what happens is when I speak to the veterans, when I'm coaching them, so they said, you know what, I am good with people. I said, do you know about the business? He says, does the HR people want to really get into the financial, the sheets of the business? I said, yes, absolutely. If you are looking at doing the journalist role. So great point, Sonal. We'll come back to you for the next question. With that, I come to the next question. Hari, I have a question for you. You can switch on your cameras. Yeah, here, I can see you. So, Hari, I see your profile and I see you have immense experience in the another vertical, which is the LD vertical of the HR, and you're a global leader as well. So can you talk about more about this vertical? Because we know this is a niche vertical. And what is your advice of military folks who are looking at making a career in this vertical, the LD space?
Thanks, Rimple. Jai Hind and good evening to everyone. Um, Learning and development, I'm sure, is not a new thing for us as 4Gs. Most of us, in some form or fashion, have experienced learning and development, either as planning and conducting training programs in our respective regiments, or in some cases, in some of you would have also been instructors at various CAT A and CAT B establishments. So that's effectively, in a way, is learning and development. And when I picked up my first role as learning and development professional, I neither had an MBA nor had any experience of doing learning in the organization, in the corporate side. I just demonstrated the passion and some foundational understanding of how adults learn. And that's how I was picked up for those roles, right? Now, coming to giving you a sense of what corporate learning and development is, corporate learning and development is quite akin to what we've already seen in the army. However, the landscape is significantly changing given the rapid rate of changes at the corporate organizational level and the industry level. If you understand, if you by now you would have sensed the rate at which skills are dying off, the rate at which new technologies are replacing many skills. Now, that's that's essentially uh, that is essentially pointed or placed L&D at the center of the business table right now, which means that learning and development is no more a support function the way it used to be in the past. Learning and development is a much, much more strategic function, which has the ability to impact the bottom line business metrics. And which means that learning and development professionals in today's world will need to come with some specialized skills. Now, if I were to delve a little deeper into learning and development essentially has three components to it. At the highest echelon, it has the learning consulting partners or learning consultants who are the client facing team. Now, these are the people who are at the highest echelon of their skill sets and competencies from a learning and development, where they're able to interface with the business stakeholders, understand what their business priorities are, and be able to infer what does that mean from an employee development, both from a current skill gap and a future skill priority standpoint, and then be able to put together the necessary strategic learning plans, and build the right curriculums and deploy those interventions. The second tier of learning and development is the delivery vertical. Now, the delivery vertical are the people or is the function which actually delivers these learning interventions across the organization. When I say interventions, this is different from a training program. Training program, as you know, is just a 1 day or a 2 day workshop with a predefined agenda. Whereas a learning intervention, the way it is done in the corporates, is more of a long duration intervention, which is addressing a specific business problem. And the learning intervention is aimed at translating the skills of the employees in such a fashion that they're able to uh, be more productive, or they're able to transform the business workings. For instance, in our organization, we were going through a technology transformation, and we had a large percentage of Java developers. We needed these Java developers to be full stack developers, and this was a skill which was to be required 6 months down the lane. The learning consulting partners were proactive in identifying that 6 months down the lane, the India organization will be needing to prepare such skill sets in the organization. So we went about doing immersive learning interventions, which are long duration, to transform pure play Java developers into full stack developers having the knowledge of the front end, the middleware, and the back end. Yeah. Leadership development is another crucial factor. Leadership development, high potential development. These are strategic learning initiatives. And learning delivery is the function which actually takes on the role of designing the content and finalizing the delivery planning and executing the delivery of it. The third arm of learning and development is the learning shared services. Like in most organizations, this is the division which is the backbone of the organization, which is to do with making sure everything is in place for the trainings to happen, for the participants to come into the training programs or the learning interventions, to doing learning analytics and making sure that the leaders have the right sense in a timely fashion.
Great.
Right? Now, if you see, nature of learning in the organizations is also evolving big time, given the changes that is happening, the macro changes that is happening in terms of, one, the hybrid work models that has started to happen. Two, the talent pool itself. The world is more and more shifting towards gig economy. There are people who are working for multiple organizations. They still need to be developed. Considering all of these factors, learning has shifted, is effective post-COVID learning scenario. The way learning is driven in the organization has also undergone a big change. Learning is more self-directed learning. Now, these are learning initiatives which the employee learns at his or her own pace through a system which is more intuitive, which is more AI driven, which understands who the learner is, what the learner's skill sets ideally are supposed to be, and where the learner is on that skill sets curve, and what is the gap. And hence, making sure that the learner is given the right form, the right bite-sized learning initiatives in a form and fashion the learner can take on.
Yeah.
Right?
I think,
now,
I was talking about the same thing, which I still remember when we were in Bank of America, and there's certain interventions which were required from learning perspective, because usually when I'm speaking to the veterans, for them the learning is, am I supposed to be a facilitator? Whereas it is just not about being facilitators, right, Hari? And I'll come back to you for another question on how we can develop, how military veterans who are looking at making their careers in this vertical should be doing some certification or some advice. So I'll come back to you with that question again. With that, let me go over to Megha and ask her a question. So Megha, when I'm coaching military veterans who are transitioning, one thing I talk about them is prepare for your transition. So they really ask, what kind of preparation should I be doing? And I give them some points. But I want to ask you that, tell me what kind of preparation did you do when you were transitioning, and how did you land up being a director transformation and culture lead in UBS?
So this question is really important if I see from, the perspective of our colleagues who are transitioning into the corporate world. So I'll tell you my story. Ripple, I transitioned at a very difficult time. So during COVID 2020. So that time, even those 1 year, 6 months program, IMs and all, those were also not there. So 1 year
Correct.
complete silence. So you have to prepare on your own. So few of us were, uh, from that, group. But and I was also counseled to, take back my decision, because I left 6 months early for some personal reasons. So I said, no, I am prepared. And how I say I was prepared was that I knew that, okay, this is a year. This is like I made my journey after my 10th year when I took extension. So I started my preparation right then. What is required to be in the corporate? What is it that where I want to go? Now, I'll tell about all. I was a fighter controller. Fighter controlling skill is not required outside. No, there's no way I could have, joined that. But fighter controlling sphere, it teaches a lot of things like, when we are working on radar systems, when we are working in signal units, we do talent management. And I've seen that transformation happening, digital transformation happening in, Air Force. So change management. So I chose where I want to be. So change and transformation was my vertical. And, of course, when change and transformation is happening, someone has to, support the people, part. We call it human resources. We call it,
Yeah.
there are systems, there are processes, but ultimately it's people behind the systems and people behind the processes. So it's very important. So that's where, I did my couple of certifications. Again, so when I was leaving, I started interviewing pretty early. Now, what I chose was, I was tempted also to curate and create my CV in a way, okay, I know I can do operations also, I can do security also, I can,
Yeah.
but actually that's not a really, that's not an approach that we should take. And that's where I've seen, because I come from a talent acquisition space also. So my first role after Air Force was I was, I was a deputy operations for a very new organization and a very niche sector. It was called Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. I was leading their operation vertical, and I was practically their first hire. It was a coalition of 26 countries, UN bodies, and a niche sector of disaster resilient infrastructure. It sounded really fancy to me. Why I was hired was because they wanted leaders who really can navigate and create a path, who have that stress taking ability, who can take decisions, and you can be quick learners. And all of these skills are plenty in our, in our fraternity. These skills are like, we live by them, we swear by them, we walk, through them. So that is what landed. So I chose talent acquisition. I did talent acquisition. I had no global exposure. However, in my very first organization, I got into strategic HR part. When I did organization comp benchmarking, org design setup, you know, uh, and of course, setting up the operations chain. Now, how did this happen is that we have to learn through the process also.
Yeah.
That's the second very important thing, that we should not be coming with the perspective that we know it all. Now, the first roadblock in the talent acquisition space that our transitioning military veterans might face is a lot of companies, they don't consider the military HR experience. They consider security experience, they consider operations experience.
Yeah.
They also consider their tech experience. And I have my CVs outrightly, at times, even at a CV stage, got rejected. No, we'll consider you after 5 years of corporate experience. So does that mean that I don't know HR? No, I know HR. But I really have to select, I had to select my space. So that was an ability of setting up new infrastructural units. That helped me. So that's the skill. Building from scratch, creating a project plan for, heavy duty projects, how to hire. And let me tell you, I mean, I have seen very less veterans in HR acquisition space, but we can get the best resources on board, best of the talent, because we really get into, detail. As we do analysis. We just don't, we very nicely we go through the CVs, we understand the skill sets. And I have in interim period, when I took small breaks, I was consulting for few organizations wherein they just took me on board for that small little period for creating their, change plans and for hiring few critical resources for them. So this stereotype should also break that, that military veterans find it difficult in acquisition space. Why it is difficult is because of a little conservative approach that few organizations have. Because for them, we really don't hire in armed forces. It's true. But do we don't understand? No, that's incorrect. So that requires a lot of patience and self-development. So transformation, change, and talent acquisition. So these are all unique. I would say these are not unique substance. These skills are there with our veterans, but these are unique. Titles, fancy titles. What we are doing is absolutely same as we do, but this is one area, one niche sector wherein the veterans can really do really well. That's change and transformation. And what they need is project management skills. That's it. And we are wonderful in that. Let me tell you. Absolutely wonderful. Now, from there, I got picked up for another, in another organization. I was hired as a PMO. They were setting up a new business unit in L&D space. The role was created for me just after having me there for 3 months. It was a staffing company, and I was the India leadership for them in the L&D space. So Hari has very nicely covered what all L&D functions look like in an organization. I'll just add a few points wherein I see that veterans can do really well and they should think and prepare themselves in these sphere. So one is business partnering, stakeholder management, we call it in L&D space, or business partnering, understanding the business needs, and then supporting the, we call them instructional designing team. So ID team is very critical who create these programs. But who are the brains? Brains are the IDs and the LBPs who've done that need analysis, who've understood from the business what is required, and then they create and create. And then delivering on the delivery side in the talent leadership programs. I have, created and delivered middle management leadership program, senior management leadership program. So that is a sphere that veterans should definitely prep themselves for. And from there, after doing all of that, I got picked up. One of my friends, veteran only referred me to UBS. They were hiring, GoTo is the tech arm of the bank. So 80% of the arm of the bank is the tech part. That's called GoTo, Group Operation Technology vertical. And I was referred, and they had a new title called People and Culture Lead. So I was, it again sounded very fancy to me. What it encompasses, what it was there, when it broke it down, it was a mixture of what I had been doing in these previous 4 years. So it was a very easy transition. Again, what helped me here is the moment I took over the role, 2 organizations were integrating, Credit Suisse and UBS. So during that, merger that was happening, the change management in the culture space really played, handy. I mean, it was a blessing. So then the change management, that's why I call myself a transformation and change lead. Because wherever there is a change happening, you put me there. I can navigate out. So I've tried to put it simply in a way, so that the transitioning veterans are, fraternity could understand actually how they can, when they create their CVs, how they can curate their skill sets, how they can put it in that CV, how they can really put it to the finesse, to the level of finesse wherein, person reads and they can like, okay, this is a role, this is a good fit. Let's marry it together. It should be like
I understand. Because, in terms of preparation, which is really good, which you talked about, in the 10th year itself, after finishing your 10th year. And that's what I tell the veterans as well, or people who are thinking about that you need time to prepare. Don't think that, okay, tomorrow I'm getting out, let me start preparing now.
So they have to get their certifications right, for sure.
To get the certifications.
So,
and,
after getting a certification,
first to identify what do they really want to do it. And that's why I tell them, find your ikigai first. Okay, with that, I'll come to you with another question. So Hari, continuing with your question, tell me, you have done a lot of certifications, Hari. So tell us what kind of certifications these military veterans can do so that when they're thinking of making a career in the HR vertical.
Well, certifications, let's start with even thinking about how critical are certifications for tenured experts. I will say they're a good to have one. They're not critical to have one,
Yeah, correct.
right? To start with, which means that don't get hung up on, oh, well, I don't have any certifications, I cannot apply for an L&D role or a HR role. Certifications that you should be looking at, I will categorize them into two classes. One are those certifications that will put you at the upper echelon, which is those strategic certifications like OD certifications, organizational design certifications, or certifications which are global in nature. For instance, ATD has, American Society for Training and Development, has a certification, which is a globally recognized certification for learning management professionals. SHRM is also another good place, right? So these are one category of certifications which you can look at. And the other category that you can also consider is psychometrics and assessment tools. Now, these are fairly in demand tools, and they add reasonable amount of credibility for your profile for in case if you want to be a learning and development professionals. There are many such psychometric certification programs. To start with, things like Myers-Briggs, MBTI, DISC, Hogan is there for leadership development, 16 PFI. There are many. You search on a Google part, you'll get at least 100 odd certifications. Now, the priority that is there for you is to look at what is it that you want the certification for. You'll need to be able to look at the end in mind in terms of what do you want to achieve through the certification. Is it just an entry into a corporate role, or are you passionate about psychology? Are you passionate about assessing individuals and identifying the gaps and helping them thereafter? So basis that, you'll need to pick up your certifications. My recommendation for 4G officers, given that we carry a lot of weight in terms of our experience and wisdom, is to get into one of those OD certifications, or pick up those long-standing certifications from the ATD, or even in India, we have Indian School of Training and Development, which provides a diploma in training and development, which is equally good, which is equally welcomed by the corporates. So
Wonderful.
that's in a summary, that's what it is. I was also wanting to speak about the skills that are required in this job. Now, if you see in the skills that are required for someone to be a learning and development professional, is to start with, foundational is good communication skills. You need to definitely be a good communicator. Two, you need to be able to interface or communicate with all levels of employees, including the senior management. Three, you need to be able to demonstrate your big picture thinking or strategic thinking. You need to be able to understand what the business is, and hence who the employees are, what skill sets does the employees need to carry along, and be able to thereafter gauge the gaps through that.
True.
So
Absolutely.
like Sonal also spoke at the beginning, business acumen is something very crucial, not just for learning and development, but for every HR leader. You need to understand the business first.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to think big. You need to be able to connect the dots from a big picture standpoint. You need to be able to infer, hence, what the learning priorities are.
Absolutely.
Three, you need to be, now, there is one thing of getting into a job for the sake of an employment, for the sake of a paycheck. And there is another thing about getting into something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, very important.
Now, for me, I was deeply passionate about this domain, and I chose, despite there were opportunities for me to broaden my horizon out of learning and development into HR business partners and other areas, I chose to be in the learning and development space. I was passionate about developing employees. You need to have the passion. So
Absolutely.
look inside and ask
Very
yourself
important.
what makes me feel great about doing some things.
Absolutely.
Then
That's very important point, Hari. I think you bang on, you brought, and this is what the message from my side when I'm coaching everybody is that first find out what do you want to do out there. Are you really going to be passionate next 20 years? If you're going to be working like this, would you be passionate? Because there is no uniform, there is no country. You need to be passionate about what you are doing. Thanks for that, Hari. With that, I'll come to Sonal. Sonal, I have a question for you before I go to Meghna. So now you have led many leadership domain initiatives. So tell us about some of the initiatives the organizations can talk about. We have been talking about what the veterans should be doing, so many points. But tell us what organizations can do to create an inclusive environment for our military veterans.
See, generally speaking, I think it takes a little time for the maturity to set in, even to understand what you want to do. It's like suppose we bring a civilian into an army setup. You know that they would stick out like a sore thumb, even if they were experts at what they were speaking. So generally, veterans are welcome. Most organizations welcome veterans, and I think Megha was speaking that people were asking her that her CV would also get rejected, that you need to have about 5 years in corporate. It's like landing on another planet. All right. One, organizations do have many DEI initiatives, and DEI initiatives are not just narrowed only to gender or people of the sexuality spectrum, or or any of the minorities. Really, the DEI initiative is meant to bring in diversity of thought, right? And bringing in veterans is also a key component. The reason people prefer someone who's already had one stint in corporate and then coming is because you learn the language.
That's all.
Right?
Correct.
You have the skill, you have the wisdom, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out what are you passionate about till you're in it. Till you've done a bit and you say, you know what, like you've had an appetizer. You say, you know what, this isn't quite to my taste. Maybe I need to try something else. Maybe I need to try something else. And for some lucky ones, you hit jackpot the first time around and you say, I'm going to eat biryani for the rest of my life. So most big organizations have programs where they welcome veterans. Here, the onus kind of lies on the veterans to assimilate well. You said something about not coming in like a know-it-all. There's a Zen Kwan Rimple where a very expert swordsman, wins all the competition in the land. And everyone keeps telling him, okay, but fine, there's this one master who lives on that mountain. He's the best of them all. Unless you defeat him or unless you learn from him, you won't be number one. So he goes to him and he goes, so the master is old and he says, okay, sit down. And he says, would you like to have tea? Meanwhile, this person is elaborating, I've done this, I've done this. मैंने इस कद्दू में तीर मार लिया in Fauji language. मैंने उस कद्दू में तीर मार लिया. And eventually, that the master is pouring tea in his cup and the tea keeps overflowing because he's pouring so much of it. So he says, what are you doing? The cup is already full. So he says that to get better or to move to the next part of your learning, you will need to empty your cup.
Empty your cup. Yeah.
Empty your cup and then take in more. So one of the things that I see very senior leaders or even younger ones, sometimes they come in with pride, which is good, but it sometimes can be an obstacle into not learning what needs to be done and in assimilation, right?
True.
So we've had programs. It's part of our talent acquisition strategy. We are, especially middle and senior management, we are looking at leaders who can come in, people who are proficient in leading large teams, leading large projects, program management, and who can also look at culturally, performing in diverse segments where you have people coming in from different parts of Asia, Europe, etc. So it's part of our talent strategy. It's part of our overall people strategy to welcome in more diverse people in these segments. I know that we are out of time. So I would say, you, Megha and Hari all covered about an identity shift. This is what I was talking. What are the challenges that come? One is the identity shift where you have a loss of purpose and belongingness. An earlier purpose. It doesn't mean you can't have a new purpose, but your earlier purpose no longer stays relevant when you're serving in the uniform. right? You have something anchoring you with the organization and to the nation. It may still continue, but it will take a different form. So you have a sense, there is a loss of belongingness to an organization, especially if your identity was rooted in it for so long.
Yeah.
And so you need to, part of the mindset shift, because Megha and Hari
Absolutely.
spoke a lot about the actual certifications and things to be done. I would say part of the mindset shift is to be prepared to redefine your professional identity when you move into an organization. And there, having a language that speaks this helps. Certifications help, but like I would agree with Hari that unless it's it's program management fundamentals and things like that, OD and leadership front, even HR front, I would say do an orientation, do one of these courses. If you have the privilege of doing a degree, an MBA in whatever domain you want, if you do that, do it. It helps you transition both mentally, because if you just hang a uniform and take a job, it's going to take a little more time, which is what I did. Like, my career is a series of black demo. I made it work, but I did everything I did everything the other way around, because Rimple, when you and I left, we didn't really have, we are oldies now. We didn't really have the
We didn't have the
IIMs
support
and
system in the IMs,
yeah, we didn't have the support system. So work on the identity shift, work at translating your skills. Okay.
Absolutely.
Third is the cultural adjustment. Fourth is networking. We are terrible, terrible, terrible at building a network that works for you. Okay.
True.
And the last one is understanding corporate norms. The norms that work in the armed forces are slightly different from the norms in corporate.
True.
The essentials of human behavior don't change, but the norms as to what's acceptable and what's not changes. So we need to know that.
Absolutely.
So that's
Great point, Shana. Great point, Sunil. With that, I think, Megha, we have the last question for you, a quick question. So tell us, what are some of the skills, I think you did answer a few of them, which you acquired in the military, which helped you to be successful in the HR domain. So before we finish, this is the last question, Megha, for you.
So, thanks, Dimple. And once again, Hari and Sonal have covered most of it, and I'll just add on bits which are important, which I think can be an add-on. So one is whosoever is transitioning, please know which is the field that you want to go, right? Because in today's market, there are disruptions. The scenario, when I left, also that time it was difficult. Today also, know the skills that are required if they are required to be upgraded. Like, for example, in HR domain, if you want to get into an HR domain, we have to be ready to be accepting this fact that yes, the kind of HR that's there in armed forces is different. We have to learn the jargon, we have to learn the global landscape, we have to understand, so we have to give that much of time. We have to have that kind of a patience. So that should not let us down. Now, then easier way out can be, because when we are transitioning, times we just want a job. There are a lot of us who just want a job, that okay, we'll see where we want to go. So operations can also be a good field, but if you want to really get into HR, then apart from passion, networking is something that will work. Because where you get that your golden fish, you don't know where and how, which network would work. And network need not necessarily be the up the people who are in very senior position. It's a lateral, or see where are your junior, where your course juniors are, where your parallel mates are. Keep a bridge, connect. I, along with one of my friends, we run that veteran officers network. It's a WhatsApp group, and whatever, we stay connected. Actually, that helped me connect with one of my colleagues. He actually referred me to UBS. So if I say it works, I'm a sitting example, right?
Absolutely.
So these are the things that we should think when we are transitioning. We have to network, we have to prepare ourselves, we have to know which field we have to go, and then upgrade your skills.
Absolutely.
If generative AI is the need of the hour, please prepare for it. There's no going back and okay, I mean, what's the rocket science in that? There is a rocket science, because there's that's a requirement of a JD. It's written in there. It's required. You are supposed to know it. So if you're applying for it, right? And one more thing is that I have seen is, if you're applying for any position, directly, apart from it, if it's not through an IIMs or an IA, any of this institute is, read the JD well before you're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen that missing. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, but because I
Yeah.
was in the acquisition space,
Yeah.
again, people come with, no, we know it all. No, we don't know it all. I
Yeah.
mean, no one knows it all.
True.
Right. So
Absolutely.
please read
Great.
it well, what you're applying to, what value you bring to the table. We have to speak about it. Second, our CV can, because we are coming from the forces, then we bring a great value. Yes, we bring a great value, but we have to communicate also what value we bring, why we are a good fit. We have to justify ourselves, and we should be ready for this. So these
Absolutely.
are just the add-ons, and again, it comes as part of the mind shift.
Yeah, that's what I
That
think Sonal
we
brought
are
that
getting,
point as well.
we are getting into a
That
new world.
mindset is
Let's
also
be
very important.
prepared. Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, I think we're up the hour now as well. It's going to be 6. So thank you so much. Thanks, Hari. Thanks, Sonal, and thanks, Megha, for joining in today. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching out got a lot of inputs. I see you, 3 of you are so passionate about what you are doing. I see Hari, how he was talking about that and I still remember, when we were together in Bank of America, how passionate he was about his LD function, because I was the business partner and we used to discuss about, and he's talking about, no, we need to do this kind of thing only. So, and thanks, Sonal. We have been together and we have spoken about so many initiatives about HR, what should we be doing.
Yeah.
And of course, Megha, it was
Even your
wonderful.
career transition, Rimple. Even your
Ah,
career transition. You
yeah,
had
yeah.
you've moved and you've challenged yourself so much. Yeah.
I know. And Megha, wonderful to have you here today, because it was so nice and refreshing to see, and I see the passion in you. So thanks, everyone, and audience out there. Thank you so much for joining in today. And stay tuned. We will have another session in October, and this time we're going to be with somebody from different domain. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, panelists, and a fantastic session. Bye-bye for now, and take care, everyone. And happy Dashera to all of you in advance. Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
Navratri and
Thank
happy
you.
Dashera.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.